Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberrg. This podcast has been created with you in mind to acquaint you with some of the most incredible metaphysicians and spiritual leaders from around the globe who have helped others change their lives. In this interactive hour, you will be offered insights and techniques to help you make a difference in your life. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in your favorite listening platform. And here we go, on to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Guided Spirit Conversations. I'm your host, Marla Goldberrg, and I'm also your guest today. So I'm playing a dual role, but I won't do it like two separate people. We'll just keep the topic going. And if you don't know who I am, I'm a master metaphysician, intuitive public speaker. I'm an best-selling author of My Effing Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path, and the creator and host of ta-da, Guided Spirit Conversations. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of the show because it means a lot to me to know that you're showing up to listen, because I feel that whether it's me pontificating or the amazing guests that I have on the show, we all do this to bring you information, insight, and tools and tips to help you in your life's flow. So today is no different. And the topic is the importance of compassion. But I'm going to expound on that and make it compassion, kindness, and acceptance. So let me begin by saying, the last 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more for some of you, maybe less for some of you, has been almost bombastic in what's been going on. I mean, for Roe versus Wade to be overturned. It's funny. There was something in Facebook that talked about how there's, the Bible is not written into, I'm paraphrasing, but the Constitution is not the Bible. The Constitution is not a religious belief thing. And that, the politicians are not, I'm screwing this whole thing up. But the bottom line is, it's talking about the difference between, religious and non-religious beliefs, pro-choice, pro-life. So I'm not getting into a political conversation. I'm not getting into a conversation about the beliefs of pro-choice or pro-life. What I want to talk about is the reaction, because it's visceral. It's visceral just the way the whole Trump era situation was visceral. People would unfriend people because of their belief systems. And frankly, if you're abusive, I say boundaries, put your boundaries up and keep people out of your life. But if people are just voicing their feelings, their opinions, their beliefs, well, my feeling and belief is let them believe what they want to believe. I do me, you do you. And here's the thing, I don't have to believe in what you believe in, but it doesn't make me a bad person. Like, you don't have to believe in what I think or feel, or vice versa, but that doesn't mean we can't be kind to each other. We can't be accepting of each other's differences, and do it with compassion. So what I'm finding is that it just seems like compassion and kindness and acceptance is just swirling down the drain these days. Not by everyone. It's a broad stroke statement, but it's about living your life, especially if you're on the spiritual path. If you're not kind, if you're not compassionate, if you have no empathy, if you can't accept, well, how pure, how clean is your journey for spiritual enlightenment? And when I say enlightenment, nobody's saying you need to be the Dalai Lama or, be a monk that sits on a hilltop for years and years and years meditating. I'm talking about living our lives to be the best people we can be to others as well as to ourselves. So let's talk about compassion. Compassion. Let's not get it mixed up with empathy. What is compassion? Well, compassion is having feelings for somebody's situation, being able to sympathize, but not taking on the feelings, but you don't want to take on the feelings. You want to be able to experience for people, you don't have to feel their pain, but you can find a way to support them, to guide them, to just be a shoulder for them or an earpiece so they could just get it off their shoulder. And if they ask for help, helping. Where empathy is more of you do start to feel the what somebody else is going through. The phrase, you know, walk in my shoes. Well, you try to walk in somebody else's shoes and use empathy to help them. And there's a difference in it. So in compassion, you can be compassionate without taking on the emotion, without taking on what's going on with the other person, but still be there to help them up, guide them, support them. I mean, those are big words, in my opinion. So let's talk about signs of compassion. Well, finding things that you can have in common with somebody without necessarily being exactly like them. So it's about being different. And this is where acceptance comes in because you need acceptance with compassion. You need to be able to accept the other person for who and what they are. And that is both compassion and acceptance. Um, let's see, being able to understand what somebody is going through, being mindful of other people's emotions or what they're going through, their stressors, their thoughts, their experiences. Um, taking action when you see someone suffering. So I'll give you an example. Last night I was invited to a dear friend's party, and while dancing, a woman fell down and somebody fell on top of her, and well, it looked like she twisted her ankle. So I went and got some ice. It was a compassionate act. What she did with it is irrelevant. The point is I was like, oh, I know that feeling, and she was rubbing her ankle and all that stuff, but she didn't want the attention, though she had the attention. That's an act. Um, feeling gratitude when other people express compassion to something you're going through. And again, here's another story. A dear friend of mine fell over a curb that was uneven. She tripped. She fell. She fell on her face. She's got a big bump on the side of her chin, a black area around her mouth, her hands, her knees, her arm. I mean, just a lot of pain. And there were some amazing people, and this was in New York City, who made sure her dog didn't run away, who did what they could to help her up off the ground. They stayed with her until her friend came. They wouldn't budge. They wouldn't leave until they knew that she was going to be taken care of, that there was somebody there for her. What beautiful expressions of compassion for what happened to my friend. They could have just walked on by, but they didn't. They stayed. They made sure that her friend was going to show up and she was going to be taken care of. Beautiful, heartfelt compassion. And there's more than one compassion. So there's compassion for others, which is when you experience people and want to find a way to relieve their suffering. And then there's self-compassion, where you're compassionate for yourself. And, I talk about self-love, right? I talk about the need um, to forgive yourself, to accept yourself. Those are on the steps to self-love. Well, practicing self-compassion is also a part of that. So if you want to know what self-compassion is, I mean, it's pretty, self-evident, but it involves treating yourself with the same compassion and kindness that you would show to others. So, as I like to say, those words that talk you have in your head, you wouldn't talk to anybody the way you talk to yourself. Well, the way you treat others, with kindness, compassion, that's what you need to also do for yourself. We're not always going to have good days. There are not good, 365 good days in everybody's year because life happens, things happen. We catch colds, we trip and fall. We have people who are demanding things of us that are stressing us out. So what do you do with that? Those fingers that point back at you when you point outward. Well, guess what? Those fingers are about teaching yourself, treating yourself with gentleness, with support, with what you need. You're having a bad day? Have your bad day, lick your wounds, but don't dwell on it. Stand up, brush yourself off, and then maybe do something nice for yourself. So what could nice be? Well, it could be taking time to go to some water and relax, meditate, be with nature, sit on the ground, have your feet on the grass or the dirt or the sand, wherever you might be. That's doing something for yourself. That's compassionate to something you need to help de-stress. If someone's having an issue with you, maybe they're having a bad day. This is compassion for others. So you give them the space and grace that they need to deal with their situation. So some ways to practice compassion. Well, the obvious is be kind when you speak. Be gentle, be supportive. When you've made a mistake, own it. Be responsible for it. Apologize for it. Sometimes we just get into these places where we dig our heels in and refuse to apologize. Well, let me tell you something. When there's forgiveness involved, this is a gift you give to yourself. You can forgive somebody for what they've done. That doesn't mean you have to invite them to your table. It doesn't mean you have to invite them to your party, but you can certainly forgive them and move on. So, and self-forgiveness fits in this as well. Listen carefully and without judgment. That's another way. It's, many of us are so conditioned to judge and criticize. And that's on the lower scale. So if you're doing scale to self-love, this would be on the lower level, something that you need to work through, because when you judge and you criticize, all it is a vision of you're just showing who you are inside. This isn't about them, the person being criticized or judged. This is about you and how you feel for yourself. A lot of people judge and criticize because if they can put somebody else down, well, then they feel better. Because they could justify, well, look she's got bigger hips than I do, or he's got a bigger nose than I do, or he's got a old beat up car and I have this new spiffy car. That's just talking about your inferior issues, not about the person you're criticizing and judging. So it's really important to practice neutrality, not to be judgmental, not to be critical of others. Well, encouraging others is compassionate. Being their cheerleader, because we all need a cheerleader in our life. We all need people who, whether they believe you can do it or not, will give you the support that you need to try and accomplish the task. And here's the thing. All those inventors out there You think they got it right the first time? Heck no. That's what the science happens with scientists. In science, they do these tests and they take their theories and try to put them into action. Well, um, be supportive of it. You know what? Being supportive, being kind, compassionate, all free. Doesn't cost a thing to be this way. So we have a question. It says, "How do I help others that I am close to be more compassionate?" So I guess the question I have is, are you talking about how you can be more compassionate or how you can help them to be more compassionate? So while we wait for that answer, um, other ways to practice compassion. Offer to help someone do something. It was my husband and I were cleaning out our garage, and we were just doing what we were doing, and brand new neighbors came over and said, "Can my son and I help you?" And it was like, oh my God, there was a godsend. Now that's an act of being kind and compassionate. I will share. To this day, our relationship has gotten close, and they are just the most delightful individuals in our life, and they have enhanced our life with their way of being, their way of living. So, going back to the question, how do I help others that I'm close to be more compassionate with them being more compassionate? Well, I will share that my feeling is that the way you can help others is to be a role model, be the example. You can plant seeds. If you hear something that you know is not kind, is not compassionate to somebody else, you can say, do you really feel that that was helpful for the person? Do you really feel that it needed to be done or said, whatever the case might be? I truly believe that extending these kind of questions back at somebody who is showing signs of showing lack in the human condition. Ask them, bring to light in a gentle, affirming way that there are other ways to have been able to handle the situation. I think that's the best way of saying it. Because if you're gonna try and push compassion onto them, telling them, "Oh, you're not compassionate, you're not this, you're not that." Well, then you're showing them what they are because you're acting the same way. But when you ask the questions gently and let them think about the answers, or they might answer you, I think that's the way you do it. It's a gentle nudge rather than a kick in the pants or a push or harsh words. So I hope that answered that question. Going back to practicing compassion, well, accepting people for who they are, which is coming in this conversation, right? How acceptance is so important because we don't have to agree with people's beliefs. We don't have to agree with their actions, but accepting them for who they are. And there's some caveats to this. So I'll get to the caveats in a second. You want to be able to address where the issues are. So caveats are if somebody is a murderer, if somebody has beaten their boyfriend or girlfriend, if someone, well, that's a little hard to accept. That's where, forgiveness comes in, depending upon what the situation is. Hi, Francine. Um, but you need to accept people from where they are. Look at somebody who's on the street, you might not become their best friend, but you can accept that this is what has happened to them. This might be a choice. And when I say it's a choice, I mean, nobody dreams of being homeless. I would probably firmly support that statement that I just made. But the choices they made that got them to where they are, whether it's drug or alcohol abuse, whether, something fell apart in their life, accepting them for who they are, where they are, is a compassionate way of being. So let's see, what else? Expressing gratitude and appreciation for the people, the things you have in your life, which, I mean, appreciation is gratitude. And as you all know, I talk a lot about gratitude practice because it raises your vibration. And once you start your practice, you'll find you start feeling happier, thinking about the things that you're grateful for in your life rather than the lack you have in your life. It's like looking in the rearview mirror. The lack is the rearview mirror, and the abundance, the gratitude is looking forward. And what happened to me, I hope would happen to you because I think it will. I feel it will. But when I did my gratitude practice, I remember I did it and I would do it every day religiously. And all of a sudden, I just realized that I wake up singing. I wake up in the most incredible moods. And I'm happy. I am genuinely happy with my life, who I am. But it started with my gratitude. Well, let me clarify that. The gratitude practice that I have enhanced what I have been working on for the last 19 years. Which is healing myself, healing my wounds, removing those blocks, programs, and interferences, working through the issues that have been in my life since childhood so that I now have acceptance of who I am. And here's the thing, though I accept myself, I have those moments like everyone else where something annoys me about myself. And so, you just you just apologize to yourself, you forgive yourself, and go back to being grateful for who you are, what you have to offer the world, the person you have, the heart you have. If you pull down the walls around your house and show people who you are from the inside out, oh my God, what a shift that will occur in your life. And you too can start skipping down the road like I do. I'm talking about that metaphorically because I know most adults are not going to start skipping down the street. But if you did, wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that just be a wonderful experience? So let's talk about how to be more compassionate. Well, bring your attention to the situation. As I said before, you need to let go of judgment and criticism. Practice mindfulness, which is being in the moment. And here's the thing, I talk about clear delete, the technique in my book, My Effing Long Journey to Loving Myself, A Guide to a Shorter Path. So in the back of the book, I have all these tools and techniques that I used and as I was healing my life and shifting my life. And one that I do all the time, it used to be a mantra. I mean, every other word would be clear delete, clear delete, clear delete. And so now I don't have to say it anymore because now I become very mindful of the things I say and do, my thoughts. So I don't have that negative self-talk anymore. But if I should have something like that, I immediately go clear delete, clear delete, clear delete, because I do not want it coming back. You've heard me talk before that where your thoughts flow, energy goes. And so you don't want it going and coming back to you like a boomerang and hitting you in the face with all this negative stuff. Let's stop that. Let's use the clear delete or clear delete, transcend and transmute. We don't have to do that. We can just say clear delete 3 times to stop the energy flow from the humanness that we all experience. Let's see where I want to talk about next is about kindness and where kindness fits in. Well, look at another thing that's absolutely free. You don't need to pay for kindness. Being kind shows your heart. Being kind is a choice. And it involves many alternatives to kindness that will tempt us through life. So, apathy and anger is a choice, but so is kindness. Which way do you want to go? There's a quote: kindness is the sincere and voluntary use of one's time, talent, and resources to better the lives of others, one's own life, and the world through genuine acts of love, compassion, generosity, and service. Isn't that beautiful? I found that on the internet. It doesn't say who wrote this quote, but I love it because kindness is about choice. You can be kind or you can not be kind. You can decide what you want to be. But like a smile uses, less muscle, more muscles than a frown. Well, I think it uses it uses more muscles than a frown, excuse me. Well, kindness is the same way. And wouldn't you rather have kindness, be treated kindly, and treat others with kindness? So, yes, people test us, life tests us. But here's the thing, we have a choice. We can let it get in our head, the negativity. We could let it affect our day and how we communicate with others, or we can do it with kindness, with love, with generosity. On my scale of self-love, that's above the neutrality level. It's on the high side when you can get there. And I'm not saying this with judgment or anything, because I have my moments like everyone else. I am human, not realizing something will come out of my mouth with intensity that I didn't mean to have. What's the choice? The choice is to ask for forgiveness, to apologize. That's an act of kindness as well. So let's talk about a list of kindnesses, or the synonyms to kindness. So warm-heartedness, helpfulness, thoughtfulness, compassion, generosity, friendliness, goodness, sweetness, courtesy, and benevolence. There's so many ways that we incorporate kindness into our lives, into our daily activities and actions. And what's at the core? What's the core of kindness? It's love. It is love. And love is the brass ring, the golden ticket. That's what love is. And when, again, we can shed the walls of self-protection, people will then be able to feel the love that we have. And not only will they be able to feel the love that we have, you'll be able to feel other people's love towards you, their consideration, their kindness, their compassion, their acceptance of you. Isn't that a beautiful way of thinking about it? I know, it makes me feel so wonderful when you think about how love and kindness are so synonymous with each other. Love is the origin of affection, empathy, supportive undertones. It exists not only in kindness, but also in each and every kindness synonym. It truly is an amazing feat. So let's now talk about acceptance. So when you accept something, it doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't mean you want it in your life or it's your choice. But here's the thing about acceptance. You accept people for where they are. I know I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but when you can accept people, it really takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. It also elevates your vibrational frequency when you are not fighting someone or fighting what they do or trying to change somebody and who they are. Because intrinsically, people are who they are. And some people have the same philosophies and beliefs that you do. Many will not. But here's the thing. If you let somebody else believe what they believe, accept them for who they are, does that cause any damage for you? Is it stressful? I don't think so. I feel that acceptance is a way of showing an open heart. And again, you don't have to, it's like forgiveness. You don't have to agree with what somebody does, says, or thinks, but it's a gift you give yourself because you take the stress and the weight off your shoulders. It's an active process. And guess what? Acceptance is something you need to practice. You need to hone those skills. Actually, everything I'm talking about today is a practice. You practice kindness, practice compassion, practice acceptance, and even empathy. So, empathy is, um, which I mentioned, feeling what somebody else is feeling. That's still a practice to try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And sometimes we're so in our own minds that we forget that we need to practice this, that we need to make it a conscious choice to extend these behaviors outward. Um, Here's another thing. Acceptance doesn't mean that you can't work on changing things. You can, but don't force your beliefs on someone else. You can change the things you can change in the control of your change, but you can't change another individual. The only way an individual is going to change is when they acknowledge they need to change or they want to change. Then they will be open and receptive to what you're sharing. But if you try to push your beliefs on someone else, well, that's not being open to doing the work on changing things. So wait till somebody's ready. When they say, yes, I'm ready for the change, I'm ready to hear your thoughts, I'm ready to hear your beliefs because maybe there's something I can glean from them. Well, that's when you're working on the change of yourself. You know, it's so important. I always say this too. This is another one of the things I keep repeating, but you know, in AA or any of those, the only way people can shift what's happening to them is to acknowledge the issues. You know, if you're an alcoholic, when you acknowledge you're an alcoholic, then you have the choice of changing to become sober. It's a choice. Not everybody wants to be sober. Same thing with gambling, sex, shopping, eating, and the list goes on and on and on. There's even some things that I probably am not aware of. Let's see. Let's talk about. I'm looking at my notes and I'm trying to find where I'm going next. But does anybody have any questions about change, about compassion? Let's see. How do you not judge people when they're being nasty and cruel? How would you handle the situation? Well, I handle that situation quite a bit. Here's the thing. What I do is, so if it's a phone call and someone's being nasty and judgy and calling you names, I say, well, that's your opinion, but you know what? I'm going to get off the phone now. And I hang up the phone. I don't try to be rude. That's where they're at. I just want to go and live my life. So how I handle the situation is I extricate myself from the situation. If a conversation is getting heated, I'll excuse myself. If a phone conversation is getting heated, I hang up the phone. You know, you have to accept that this is where somebody else is. That's acceptance. This is who they are. This is what they're showing you. And this is where they're at in their life. So I would try to handle it with as much compassion and dignity as you can, accept who they are, and hang up the phone. Um, We're not emotional punching bags as human beings. We're not there to be punched or abused by anybody. Um, we're not. We are there to have our human experience and to learn from them and to grow. You know, I'm reading, uh, Debbie saying, if someone is nasty, I pray for them to be kinder, which is great. Praying. I put people in bubbles. There's some people in my life. I put them in a bubble. I fill the bubble with blue, green, lavender, pink, magenta, and turquoise, golden, white light. Why are those colors? Lavender and pink is love and compassion. Blue and green is healing and comfort. Magenta and turquoise are the male and female to have them balanced. And gold and white enhance and really bring the vibration up. And then I put in there the energies and emotions of love, compassion, healing, comfort, forgiveness, kindness, acceptance, patience, tolerance, and peace. And then I send the bubble back to them so that if they're open to receiving, they will receive what I'm sending them. And if they're not, they won't. But sometimes, Debbie, praying is great, but sometimes you actually have to use action. And the action is to let people know where your boundary are, that that's your opinion, that's how you're doing it. I don't accept it, and I'm not going to stay on the phone while you're being abusive. Because if people are being nasty and cruel, that's a form of abuse, and nobody needs to take it. Nobody needs to just be an emotional punching bag, as I mentioned earlier. That's where compassion is. Like, you can be compassionate. This person is in this dark place. When you're being judgy, when you're being critical, when you're being cruel, that's the place that they're in. That's what's going on within them. Because remember, we reflect from the inside out. So when our inside is dark and hurt and wounded and angry and bitter, it will come out in our actions, the way we think, the way we speak to people. That's who they are. That's what's going on with them. And that's where you can have compassion and acceptance and handle it with kindness, but extricate yourself from the situation. So I don't know if that's helpful to you for, in terms of the way I would suggest handling it, but that's how I would do it. So it is charity shout out time. I'm going to take a little mini break from the conversation and talk about a new charity that I really love, and that is the Boys and Girls Club of America. So the Boys and Girls Club of America has been around since 1860. It was developed in Hartford, Connecticut, and decided to develop a positive alternative for boys who are roaming the streets. Originally called the Boys Clubs, girls were added to the program in 1990, and the girls make up 45% of the membership. And now the Boys and Girls Club of America has around 4,300 clubs in 50 states, including Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and the U.S. military bases. 4.8 million boys and girls are served by more than 50,000 trained professional staff members and volunteers. So whatever you can donate to them, let me share with you some of the things that some of the areas the money goes to help the boys and girls. Education, their environment, health, the arts, help them with careers, alcohol and drug prevention, pregnancy prevention, gang prevention, leadership development, and athletics. That's a lot. And our kids need this, especially today when there is so much dissension and so much conflict going on. I mean, we always have this going on, but sometimes it's like a biorhythm. Sometimes it's higher than others. And so if you want to participate and help the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, go to bgaca.org. BGCA, I think I transposed that, bgca.com, and see how you can help. the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Help our children. Help them to get better at everything that they've got going on. To help them, this Roe versus Wade situation. Well, apparently people do need to understand about prevention. If people are not going to be supportive of women who are finding themselves in a place that they weren't looking for, whether it was due to incest, rape, by ignorance, and I don't say that ignorance in a negative way, but when you're not informed, it's a level of ignorance. That's all I'm saying. So when people aren't informed, if their parents aren't talking to them about sex ed and what can, you know, expoo, well, you need to be prepared for the outcome of what's going to happen if you do these things. So education, sex education is paramount in what's going on. So let's talk to our kids about sex education. Something came across Facebook, and I don't mean to get into a political conversation, but it was about male responsibility. So let's remember, who wrote the Bible? Was it the women in the stories? No, it was the men. Men, and I'm not male bashing, so please forgive me. But the reality of it is men are the ones who technically, back in the day, were the ones who were developing, based on their experiences, what is put in the Bible, what is put in the Torah, what is put in the Quran. Who studies? Up until recently, there were no female priests, and now there's still very, very few. And I don't know if there are pastors. I don't know if they have them in the Catholic Church. If they do, they're very few and far between. They have more rabbis that are female today. I don't believe any females have the ability to participate in that. It's a male-dominated situation. Anyway, that being said, going back to what I read in Facebook, which I thought was interesting, is about men taking responsibility or being forced to be responsible for their action. Meaning, if a guy rapes a girl and she gets pregnant and there's no resource for them to take care of it, is that guy going to pay for the birth of the baby, for the growing up of the baby, giving it food and clothes and nurturing? And I feel that they should also be responsible for it. If we're going to be forced as women to not have choice, then I think men need to step up and take responsibility for what they've done. Because here's the thing, there is no immaculate conception. Women don't get pregnant on their own. It is not a woman's responsibility solely for protection. Men have to take responsibility to not impregnate an individual if they're not ready to step up and be a parent, to be a father. Maybe if they did enact that rule, maybe then we will have less issues about people not wanting to get pregnant. Or if it's underage kids, the family of the boy, my feeling, should help pay for being responsible for the action of their child. I know this is a very controversial conversation, and I don't mean to start a firestorm of things coming back to me, but I have put on my Facebook page about the right to choose. I'm a believer in the right to choose. I don't want anybody else telling me what to do with my body because they're not in my body. They don't know what's going on in my heart and in my head and how something's going to affect me. I feel that there are going to be more suicides by women who feel like that they don't have a choice in what they can do for their highest and best good. And I feel that Right to choose should not be in the Bible, should not be a religious conversation, nor should it be a political one. It should be an individual's choice. So I know this is getting a little bit outside the realm of conversation, but a woman's right to choose is a woman's right to choose. We don't tell men. How do you think men would feel if women dictated what they can and cannot do with their bodies? What if women dictated that men had to have vasectomies? And that if somebody who has abused their power by forcing somebody to do something that they don't want to do, well, I think that, some action needs to be taken, maybe a vasectomy for them. Maybe they should be held from not being able to have any other children. It doesn't stop rape, but it certainly stops them from impregnating someone. It's like, I don't know who it was who was going around and they were, like feral cats. Okay. They take them, they neuter them or spay them and put them back on the streets. Well, at least they can't make more babies, but they can live their feral life. So that's it's just a thought. I don't know how you feel about that, but I truly believe that no other human being has the right to tell another human being what to do with their body or how to think or how to feel. That's an individual's free will. That's their right. So I apologize if I've gone off on this little bit of a tangent, but I truly feel that we women need to stand up for our rights. And hopefully there'll be men out there who understand the woman's right to choose and will support the woman's right to choose. I am a woman. I am speaking from a woman's point of view, and I'm sharing that with you. And again, not to disagree with how you feel or think, but it's the whole premise of what we want to do for ourselves. What we feel is for our highest and best good. So I thank you for giving me the acceptance and the kindness to allow me to share my feelings about this, because I feel it affects so many people. And there are people that don't have the money or the resources to travel to a state to have this done, if that's what they choose. And here's the thing, if you choose to have your child, great. God bless, go with God. If you choose to abort in the first trimester, God bless, go with God. I do not, however, I do want to clarify this. I do not believe that when a fetus is fully developed or close to term, that one should take their life through an abortion. I will be perfectly honest about that. But I truly feel that for other individuals that are early in the process, that I don't look upon that as murder. I do look upon second and third term abortions as murder. That's how I feel. I hope you'll be kind enough to accept and be compassionate to what I'm saying, because that's what this conversation is about, is being compassionate, accepting, kind in what you do and how you present yourself. Offering somebody a compliment. It could be as simple as, what a radiant smile you have, or I love A, B, or C, whatever's going on. You don't know, that might be the only compliment, the only uplifting word this individual might hear all day or all week. There are people who are alone and they don't have much in the way of people support, human support. And they need something to give them a smile, give them a reason to smile. It's an important something. I hope you'll agree with me on that. And I hope that you'll practice being compassionate for people. Not only people, this goes to animals. Oh my God. ACP, what is it? ASPCA. They put on these commercials that are heartbreaking. What they're talking about is not untrue, and it's heartbreaking to me that people would murder innocent animals, abuse them for their own profit. And on a spiritual path, I talk about being on a spiritual path. The people who do that, the karma that they're creating for themselves, what you reap, you will sow, is not something I want to carry around with me. And that's why, whether it's a duck, a squirrel, a bird, a dog, a cat, a horse, an animal, whatever, being kind to that animal is just as important as being kind to a human. And just remember that your kindness adds up those karmic brownie points so that whether it's this life or your next incarnation, you're bringing these brownie points with you, which means you're ascending up the ladder and you're opening your life to be able to receive. And isn't that a beautiful thought when you think about that, when you think about the practice of compassion, kindness, and acceptance, and what that does for you on your spiritual path? It's incredible. All right. Does anybody else have any questions or thoughts or comments that I can respond to for them? Well, okay. Well, I think I have talked about compassion, kindness, and acceptance to the best of my ability. I'm sure there's more to be spoken about, but in today's podcast, I think we're complete. Next week, I am so excited. We are going to have the renowned psychic medium, Richard Knight, come on the show. And Richard has been serving those that he has been in contact with to help their lives. He has a beautiful belief about what he does, he wants to do to help others' lives be better. So I invite you to tune in next Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time when my guest Richard Knight and I will have a scintillating conversation about his path, his journey to becoming a psychic medium, and how he helps people. I know he does a tarot masterclass. He offers psychic development classes, psychic development master classes. As I mentioned on the announcement, it's all booked full, but he's doing a 2-day tarot masterclass in Venice, Italy. How wonderful. I wish I was closer to Venice, Italy, because I'd love to go. But like I said, his event is sold out. But what a beautiful something he's put together with his colleague, and I cannot remember her name, but together they're doing this 2-day event in Venice, Italy. But this is who Richard Knight, we're going to find out who he is, what he does, how he works with his clients, how he helps his clients, and how he elevates his clients on their life path. So again, I invite you to tune in. Also, I will not be at the Bag Lady this Friday, as I will be traveling for the 4th of July, like the millions of others out there, crazy people out there that are traveling. But I get to see my granddaughter, so I'm so excited about that. But I wish you all a very happy and safe 4th of July holiday weekend. I want to thank Bridget for all you do for me. My right hand, my left hand, she is my assistant, and she is so important to myself and all the things that I'm trying to put out for you, the listening audience, not just in the podcast, but in other things that we're working on together. I am going to be doing a talk at Harvard University on the 29th of July, which I'm really excited about. We will have that video up on my website and possibly on my YouTube page when I get it back. So I'm really excited about that. And I know Bridget's going to be so helpful with those graphics. I want to thank you, the listening audience. And for those of you who tuned in and wrote to me and participated in this podcast, thank you, thank you, thank you so very much. I am so grateful for you and all you do and being a follower, a listener to the podcast. Remember, if you like the podcast, subscribe to it. If you like the podcast, like it. It only helps me get this out to more and more people, and hopefully it will be helpful to many. Also, remember to listen to the podcast on your favorite listening platform. So thank you to you out there. I want to remind you about Richard Knight coming on the show next week. I will be back at the Bag Lady on the 8th of July. Can't believe we're in July already. From 2:30 to 6:30. So if you want to have a session with me in person, go to the Bag Lady website, which has a link to our scheduling app, so you can schedule an appointment with me, or you can write to me directly at marla@mghealer.com. So I appreciate that as well. And as I leave the show, as always, I send you love, blessings, and gratitude. I am so grateful that you're in my life in whatever capacity you're in it. For not only are you my student, you are my teacher. And not only am I a teacher for you, I am your student to learn from you. And that is what we're here for. So I'm going to say those three beautiful words to you right now. I love you. So if you haven't heard them today before this, you now hear it again. You're hearing it for the first time. If you have heard it, you're hearing it again. You are loved. You are never alone. Your beings on the other side are there waiting for you to ask for what it is you need, your help, your support, your guidance, whatever it is. Speak it out loud. Raise the vibration. Let them hear you so they can start to conspire on your behalf. Right. Well, once again, safe travels if you're traveling for the holiday weekend. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy your family, your friends, whatever it is you do, even if it's a time that you're going to go inward. Get the most out of it, make the most out of it, not for anybody else, but for you. All right. Till next week, sending you love.